we're going to start off with Elon Musk. The big news is that Elon was issued a subpoena in the U.S. Virgin Islands case against JP Morgan Chase involving Jeffrey Epstein. So on April 28th, the U.S. Virgin Islands issued this subpoena for Elon Musk, but they have not been able to deliver it. They haven't been able to track him down. He hasn't disappeared like Larry Page, but it's similar. They've been trying to track down Larry Page as well, been unable to. So they've asked the court if they can issue the subpoena to Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. Same thing, they're asking now because they've been unable to figure out where Elon Musk is at any given time. And so they've asked the courts to allow them to subpoena Tesla instead. Elon Musk, by the way, has come out saying that this is idiotic. He says that he says that cretin never advised me on anything whatsoever. The notion that I would need or listen to financial advice from a dumb crook is absurd. And he says JPM, which is JP Morgan Chase, let Tesla down 10 years ago, despite having Tesla's global commercial banking business, which we then withdrew. I have never forgiven them. That is what he has to say about the subpoena. But let's go over the actual subpoena. And they have been, the U.S. Virgin Islands case against JP Morgan Chase regarding Jeffrey Epstein, they've subpoenaed several billionaires at this point. We know of Larry Page, we know of Elon Musk, but apparently there's many, many more who they have also subpoenaed. What they want to know is, and this is from the subpoena itself, all documents reflecting or regarding communications between you and JP Morgan regarding Epstein or Epstein's role with respect to your accounts, transactions, or financial management. So they want any sort of communication between him and JP Morgan regarding Jeffrey Epstein or Jeffrey Epstein, his role in any way. That's what they're asking from Elon. 2, all documents reflecting or regarding communications between you and Epstein regarding JP Morgan and your accounts, transactions, or relationships. So if there was any emails or any documentation between him and Jeffrey Epstein where JP Morgan was mentioned, they want those documents. So they want the JP Morgan documents where Epstein was mentioned, and they want Epstein documents where JP Morgan was mentioned. 3, all documents concerning communications or meetings between you, Epstein, and or JP Morgan regarding your accounts, transactions, or relationship at JP Morgan. So that would be apparently documents between all 3 at the same time, I'm thinking. 4, all documents reflecting or regarding fees you paid to Epstein and or JP Morgan in connection with your accounts, transactions, or relationship at JP Morgan. And 5, all documents reflecting or regarding Epstein's involvement in human trafficking and or his procurement of girls or women for commercial sex. I suppose they have to ask. That one right there, I mean, why? Even if somebody had these kind of documents where Jeffrey Epstein, where some sort of document where that shows that Jeffrey Epstein was somehow involved in human trafficking and procurement of girls and women for commercial sex, if you had those documents, would you turn them over, or wouldn't that implicate you in some way? Or maybe if it's, I suppose it could be just emails between him and other people, where other people maybe sent warnings to Elon Musk saying, Jeffrey Epstein is involved in XYZ, procurement of girls, sex trafficking, all of these things. And so maybe that's also what the document, what type of documents they're asking for, any sort of knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein and his activities, that some sort of communication exchange that he had with other people. Okay, the big question then is, what are the possible implications of this subpoena? So you can just subpoena anybody. You don't need to have any evidence of anything in order to issue the subpoena. So they could just be pulling things out of thin air. We do know, Jeffrey, that Ghislaine Maxwell and Elon Musk had a photograph together. Maybe that is where they're thinking. Maybe Elon somehow is connected. Maybe they have other evidence that Elon is connected in some way to Jeffrey Epstein. Elon has said, yes, I had accounts at JP Morgan Chase, but I dropped those. I dropped those 10 years ago. They are, by the way, asking for these documents from 2002 and beyond. So they're asking for a long time ago and up until now. So the possible implications of this: first, you have to understand the U.S. Virgin Islands case against JP Morgan in order to understand how Elon Musk may or may not be involved. So The allegations that the US Virgin Islands are making against JP Morgan Chase is that they allege that JP Morgan Chase knew about Jeffrey Epstein's activities. They knew that he was conducting nefarious business, that he was trafficking young girls, and that he was making money or exchanging money in some way regarding this activity. They allege that JP Morgan Chase knew about this and they turned a blind eye. And even worse, they may have facilitated the various transactions. High net worth individuals at banks get special treatment. They get special banking privileges that, the rest of us, we just go in, we go to the ATM, we go to the clerk or whatever, right? High net worth individuals have much more bespoke sort of treatment at these banks. So they're saying that JP Morgan Chase knew about this. They either turned a blind eye to it, which is bad enough in their view, or they facilitated it at worst. They're saying that the reason why JP Morgan Chase did this was because they were benefiting in some way from their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He had high net worth bank accounts at their bank, so they didn't want to lose him as a client. But further, so that's one reason why they maybe turned a blind eye. But the more nefarious reason is they believe that he facilitated more high net individuals going into JP Morgan Chase. So maybe they're kind of thinking that maybe, and what they're trying to find out is if there was a deal that was perhaps struck between Epstein and the bank, that Epstein said, hey, maybe the bank said, hey, you've got some nefarious activity here. What is this? It looks like you're sex trafficking young girls. And then Epstein says, ooh, don't look there. How about you just forget about that? And I'll bring in more high net worth individuals to your bank. Deal? And the US Virgin Islands is suspecting that this may or may not have been a deal. And so that's what they're trying to find out. They're investigating this. So if that's the case, if Jeffrey Epstein was bringing billionaires into the bank, the question then would be, how was he doing this? One of two ways that I can think of. One of the ways is that either JP Morgan just knew that Epstein was a well-connected individual who was rubbing elbows with a lot of powerful and rich people, and he would just potentially refer clients to the bank, and they may do it and they may not, right? You get some, you get, and others you don't. And that's just part of the referral sort of industry. So that's one way he could have been bringing him in. The more nefarious way he could have been bringing them in is he was blackmailing people into the bank. He was saying, I got dirt on you, and you need to move your accounts to JP Morgan Chase, or else I'm going to reveal this information. That is what the US Virgin Islands is trying to find out. So they're trying to connect all of these various dots. Why did if JP Morgan Chase was complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, why were they? Were they benefiting in some way? Another option is Jeffrey Epstein had blackmail on somebody like Jamie Dimon, for example, or some of the other high-level executives at JP Morgan Chase, that maybe they turned a blind eye because they too were involved. That's also a possibility. Everybody's implicated. Practically everybody who had any sort of dealing with Jeffrey Epstein is somewhat not implicated, but I would say suspicious, right? Everybody should be looked at. Everybody should be scrutinized on what sort of activity do they have with Jeffrey Epstein. This, by no means, I would guess that the vast majority of people who had interactions with Jeffrey Epstein, who were hanging around him, my guess is the vast majority were not involved in his crimes, and they were not involved with these young girls. It's very difficult to get a lot of people involved in your crime, right? It's not like everybody you know is going to do it. I suppose it depends on who you're hanging out with, but my guess is you would meet a lot of people, and people would naturally weed themselves out. It's sort of like if you're involved in a crowd of people that you're all doing drugs, like not everybody's going to do the drugs that you meet. So only the people that are interested in the drugs are going to continue hanging out with you, but most people are probably not going to be, and so they're not going to hang out with you as much. So it's sort of that same sort of thing, like, if you're interested in the young girls, then you're probably going to continue a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And that's where people become really suspicious. The people that we see logs of them over and over and over hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, that's very eyebrow raising. They, of course, knew who Jeffrey Epstein was. Everybody knew he was a big pervert at minimum. But you would think that the people that hung out with him over and over and over again knew more than he was just a pervert, that he was involved in a sex trafficking scheme, and that they themselves were partaking in that. So that is, but a lot of people met with Epstein once. I don't think that's enough to really be all that suspicious about them. And so we have to be very careful about the various photographs we see Jeffrey Epstein, the people we see with Jeffrey Epstein, the accounts of people going to Epstein's house for a business meeting. We have to be a bit careful, but we should also scrutinize everything and everyone. So that is a situation with Elon Musk. That is a situation with the subpoena. It doesn't really mean anything at this point. Again, they don't need any evidence for a subpoena. We just have maybe a photograph of Elon Musk with Ghislaine Maxwell, and they're like, okay, that's enough to ask them some questions. They're asking apparently a lot of billionaires a lot of questions. And hopefully they ask a lot of people a lot of questions. We would like to see more than just Larry Page and Elon Musk ask these questions, right? There's a lot of people on these lists that we would love these subpoenas to go out to. And maybe the US Virgin Islands is just starting with these guys because high net worth individuals would be valuable to a bank. Somebody with lower net worth, but just a lot of political power might not be so valuable to the bank. We'll see. But that's the lowdown on that. That's what you guys need to know.